Hey everybody, Terry here, and today I'm going to be working on the front suspension on my BMW Z3. On this new series of videos, I'm going to be tackling the front suspension. This video is going to be the front sway bar. I've already did everything I needed to do on the left-hand side of the vehicle. That's why I'm a little dirty already. I did the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and film the right-hand side so you guys can see everything step by step. So this video, we're going to take care of the front sway bar or suspension bar, however you want to call it, the rubber bushings, as well as the end links. Let's go ahead and get in. All right, so I already got the car pre-lifted. Make sure you have it safely on some stands. Make sure that, you do your shake test, it's not going to fall down. Step one is to remove your wheel. All right, so once you get underneath, you're going to have your end link is going to be right here. There's going to be a bracket that you'll need to detach this from right here. You can now, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing your lower control arms, you're going to want to remove this whole bracket that's bolted underneath so you can reuse it. If you're not doing your lower control arms, you just need to disconnect the bushing from this bolt here to get the end link to come off, and then we'll work on to the actual sway bar. And there's going to be a rubber bushing on this side as well on the opposite side, held in with two fasteners. We'll need to get those removed and drop the whole sway bar. So I'm going to be replacing the lower control arm. So I'm going to actually detach it from the bracket down on the bottom so I can move this over to the new one. All right, so the fastener that's right here is going to be a 13 millimeter. You're going to want to put a wrench on one side and loosen it with your socket or whatever you're going to use on the other side so it doesn't spin. If you're removing the whole bracket like I'm going to be doing, the bottom one was a 16 millimeter. So you're going to need that to take that off. So I'm going to loosen this one first, the 13, so that way after I remove the whole thing, I can still get it off. Because once I remove the bracket from the control arm, it's going to be really hard to loosen this fastener. So I'm just going to loosen that first. All right, I'm going to leave it on for now, but it's nice and loose. Now I can go ahead and do the bottom. This end link is so shot that it keeps twisting. All right, so these two fasteners holding in the rubber bushings are 13 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and drop those down on both sides, and then that will free up the sway bar, and then I'll be able to just lift this right out. Now you're going to want a deep socket because the bolts do go pretty far through where your nut is. Don't lose these nuts because you're going to most likely need to reuse those. And now this side's going to be loose. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the opposite side. Now on this side, I've already replaced the lower control arm. So this nut on the end link is only finger tight. So I'm just going to take those off and then just focus on the actual bushing part itself. Oh yeah. Once I get these two nuts off, this thing might just fall off on its own, possibly. All right, so now it'll just fall right out. And we can just remove the whole sway bar. All right, now the fastener that's holding the other part of your end link to the sway bar is going to be a 16 millimeter. So I'm gonna go ahead and break this one loose now. Honestly, I should have did it before I removed the whole sway bar, but you know, I didn't. It might spin, you might have to put a wrench in on the inside. Yeah, it's free spinning. So let me get a 16 wrench. And now the end link is off. You can replace your end links without removing the sway bar if all you want to do is the end links. But since I'm replacing these bushings, I'm doing it all at once. All right, so now you can pop off the bracket. It should just come off just like that. And then you got to pry off the old bushings. Sometimes you can get them off by hand. Sometimes you'll need a pry bar. Looks like these are worn enough to where I can just stretch it right off by hand. And then you can inspect them, see if they're cracked. These actually don't have any cracks in them, but you can see how much I'm able to bend it. These should be pretty stiff and hard to get on and off. So they're starting to get some wear, but they haven't gotten blown yet. They're not cracked or anything. So they still have some life in them, but it's still good to replace them. These are the original ones, most likely. So they're over 20 years old. And just pop those off. Now, I had measured my sway bar with my digital caliper, and it is a 25 millimeter. So that's the size bushing that you're going to need, is 25 millimeter. Now you can go above or below the actual sway bar size by 1. So depending on how you want to spec yours out, if you're using any kind of aftermarket performance, like struts or anything like that, you might want to tighten them up or something. But I'm going to stick with stock, and I'm going to put some 25s back on it. All right, so I'm going with the Vaico brand bushings. Again, these are just going to be the OEM rubber bushings. You can go with poly if you want, but I'm trying to keep this car comfortable for daily driving, so I don't want anything that harsh and firm. So I'm going to go with just with rubber. And these will just kind of prime apart and slip them right back on. Just like so. And these ones actually go on significantly easier than the rear subframe ones did. Just like that. All right. And then you would, you know, put your brackets back on. Trying to remember which way these go. It's going to be a tight fit. I'll wedge it on later. All right, let me get the other end link removed real quick, and then I'll get set up to put the new ones on. All right, so here's my old end link. You can go ahead then, and I'm going to separate the bracket because I need to transfer this over to the new end link. And if you look, you can see all this play. You shouldn't be able to move this around by hand. If I grab the new one, I can't move it. So if you have all this play, that's how you can tell that it's no good. So we're going to go ahead and put these nice new ones on. I'm going with the OEM brand, which is Lemforder. These are German-made ones from factory. So we're going to go ahead and use these and reattach. Now, there is no left or right when it comes to your front ones. It'll be the exact same part for both sides. All right, so I'm just going to transfer the bracket over to the new end link. And just get that finger tight. And then we can go ahead, and they're going to give you a new nut to put on the part that's going right back onto the actual sway bar. I'm just going to do it finger tight. We'll tighten everything down once we get everything back in position. All right, so now I got to lift the sway bar back into position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lower bracket bolt, and seat it into the lower control arm. That's going to help kind of hold it in place so I can then juggle getting the bushing brackets to snap back in. This is something that you might want to have a buddy to assist you with, because you're going to have to hold up the bar to get both ends in. And today I have a buddy. His name is Tyler. Say hi, Tyler.
Hey, everybody.
All right. So my buddy Tyler is going to be assisting me on this today. So let's go ahead and we're going to lift this in and I'll do it on my end and he'll do it on his end. We're just going to put the bracket into the control arm. All right, so I'm getting ready to put the bracket on. It's going to be a really tight fit because these are new, they're not as wore out. So I'm going to use a little bit of red and tacky grease just to put a little bit of lubricant on the inside of the bracket and to help slide it on. And that's also going to help too, preventing it from squeaking as it kind of bounces around inside the bracket when you're driving. So just give it a little bit of lubricant. Just like that, and then we'll slip them on. All right, so the slit on the bushing should be facing down towards the floor. And then you're going to just try to slide your bracket back in. And that red and tacky is making this significantly easier to push on. And then we just got to get it to go back on these studs right up here and to put those nuts on and to mount it into place. All right, so Tyler's got his end kind of on. It's just finger tight at the moment to hold it in place. So now I got to get my side lined up because you can see my bracket's not lining up. So I might need to slide the bushing around a little bit on the actual sway bar until I can get this bracket to line up and get it seated in. So I'll have to kind of get mine to work because mine's not lining up right now. All right, so as you can see, I got mine now seated on. These are just finger tight. So now we can go ahead and tighten them down. And as we tighten it, it's going to squish the bracket in and push it, pinch everything in properly. All right, so once again, this is the 13 millimeter. You're going to want to torque these down to 16 pound-feet. All right, that's torqued down. Just repeat the same thing on the opposite side. All right, I know a lot of you guys like torque specs, so here is the section in the Z3, I call it the Z3 Bible, but you know your service manual. All right, so right here was the brackets. We did that. That was the 16 pound-feet. And then the stabilizer link, they basically have 44 pound-feet across everything. So that's going to be the one on the bottom, the one up here, and then the one up here. Technically, the one that goes underneath the lower control arm, the nut on the bottom of the lower control arm, you want to have load on the lower control arm before you tighten that one, because that one's not a ball joint. The ball joint ones you can just tighten, but because this one is not a ball joint, we need to raise up on that control arm and then torque it to spec. Now to tighten the ball joint, the top one here on your end link, to the actual sway bar, you're going to want to put a 16 millimeter wrench on the inside to keep it from spinning while you tighten the nut. Money. All right, so I'm going to use my jack, and I'm going to go right underneath where the ball joint is, and I'm going to just raise this the steering knuckle up a bit to put load on it, and then I'm going to tighten the bracket to the actual control arm. All right. All right, and with that, we got this fastened down to 44 pound-feet. This is 44 pound-feet. I still got to do this fastener here, and then the end link will be done. Make sure you do the same thing on the opposite side. That's snug. I feel like that should be good and tight. This wasn't that tight. And I don't want to break the bolt. So I'm going to just leave this one good and snug. Alright, and there you have it. That is how you go ahead and replace your end links as well as bushings for your front sway bar on your BMW Z3. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.